Good morning, fam. I pray you all are doing well. Um, this is probably going to be a quick video, but I think it's an important lesson that we need to keep in the back of our minds as we go through this season of being, poured out over and seeing the favor of God. And so, throughout my Bible reading this week, there's been a theme, and the theme has been about being careful about the company you keep and understanding that sometimes the favor of God may bring out the worst in people around you. Because the sad truth is that sometimes people are only friends with you so long as you're on the same level as them. But the minute that the Lord lifts you up, it creates a jealousy. And sometimes we don't see that, but it could have like repercussions to what God's doing in our lives. So the way that this theme started building was I was led to read 1 Samuel chapter 18 in my Bible reading this week. And in that passage, it talks about Saul's jealousy towards David, right? And so to understand how the relationship shifts because of the favor that David receives from God, right, on his life, you have to go back to like 1 Samuel chapter 16, 17, where you see when David and Saul first developed a relationship. So what happened was Saul was being tormented by spirits. And so David was called into the into the palace to play the lyre for Saul. And when he played his lyre, it would soothe the tormenting spirits. It would soothe Saul, right? So David initially had favor with Saul because he brought him relief. But after David kills Goliath, it says in 1 Samuel chapter 18, I'm on verse 6, it says, as they were coming home, when David returned from striking down the Philistine, the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines, with songs of joy, and with musical instruments. And the women sang to one another as they celebrated, Saul has struck down his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very angry, and this saying displeased him. He said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed thousands. And what more can he have but the kingdom? And Saul eyed David from that day on. And so even though Saul was being praised, because the praise was not greater than the praise that David was receiving, Saul grew jealousy in his heart over the favor that God had put over David, over being able to defeat Goliath. Okay. And so I had put a note here, the favor of God in your life may cause the very people around you to become jealous. And this has been something that the Lord has spoken to me about in the past, but he's bringing this message back up. And the reason why I felt like I had to share it today was because I also read something similar into this theme for my assigned reading today, which was in Psalm 41. In verses 6 through 9, it says, and when one comes to see me, he utters empty words, while his heart gathers iniquity. When he goes out, he tells it abroad. All who hate me whisper together about me. They imagine the worst for me. They say a deadly thing is poured out on him. He will not rise again from where he lies. Even my close friend in whom I trusted, who ate my bread, has lifted his heel against me. And so during this time of wilderness, we may have had some friends who have been very close, have been there and walking with us, but we don't know the intentions of their heart. We don't know if they've just been coming to check up on our progress because they want to know, are you still down, right? They gossip about your situation behind your back. And so when God lifts you up, if their intentions were not true as they were there for you during your wilderness season, you're going to see it, because the jealousy that will fester up in them from seeing God's favor on your life will be evident. And so I say this to you not to be boastful about the fact that God's going to pour favor out on you, right? But just to be mindful of the company you keep. I, as your big sister, would just really encourage you during this time to ask the Lord to give you the eyes to see people the way He sees them. To be, the Lord looks at the heart. So being able to see people for their heart posture towards you in the friendships and the relationships that you have around you, that may God give you discernment about who you can confide in and what you should be sharing during this time. Um, the Lord's will be done regardless, but sometimes we can avoid further warfare, spiritual warfare, when we learn who to share with and when to share. And so I'm just encouraging during this time to remember this as God lifts you up. Be cognizant of the reactions of the people around you. Those who truly want the best for you will celebrate with you, even if you're being celebrated at a higher level than they are. But those who have secretly wished negative towards you, you may notice jealousy start to spring forth as the Lord blesses you. So just keep this in mind as we go about this shifting. And I pray the Lord give you discernment. So that's all I really wanted to share. I felt it was important because it kept coming up. And I think the Lord just wants us to have wisdom as we move forward with the company that we keep. So I love you guys. Till next time.